About a year ago, me and my friends had just finished medical school. We went to some health facility where we were going to be practicing for the meantime. We were overly excited. Me as a person, it was going to be my first time sustaining myself, paying for myself rent and what. So we were kind of nervous and excited at the same time. So there's this system in the medical field where you overwork if you're a lower cadre. And in the facility, we used to overwork under supervision of the doctors, and it reached a time when we were the ones kind of like running the hospital. So we used to work day duties, and even in the night, whenever something would come up, they would call you. You wake up, go to the hospital. It used to be mostly obstetric emergencies. For example, there's a mother in labor and you're the one supposed to go. So there came weeks where we used to work during day and night. Though in the night it wasn't all through, but you couldn't sleep because there was interrupted kind of pattern. You're called, for example, at 2, then you're called at 3, you go back, probably you're called at 5, so you couldn't really sleep. At first, this was, fun and entertaining, a whole new experience. And we were happy, of course, because we were making some money. It was generally okay. But with time, I started to feel drained. It didn't really happen at once, but I started developing new values, I would say. There are things I wanted to do, but I was tied to this kind of routine at the hospital where you couldn't even leave for a day because people are going to call you. And we couldn't just leave because we had a responsibility to fill the gap because the doctors had entrusted us. But the more I developed these other kind of values, I started to feel drained. The kind of thing where I would wake up, go to the hospital and, do what? It wasn't really matching anymore. It got to a point whereby even a patient would call me and, I would just feel kind of triggered or bad. I know this is not right, but it got to a point whereby I was just triggered by patients doing the same routine, and I would say the environment was no longer exciting the way it was. I even got to the point whereby I wanted to distance myself a bit from my friends, and at the moment I didn't really know what was happening. Out of the blue, I just woke up, packed a few of my things and left the place. I went back home without telling people what I was going to do, what I was up to. My friends, tried to call, what's happening, where are you? And I'll just tell them, no, I'm home, I'm doing some certain things. But of course I was lying. I was just trying to change the environment because I felt like it wasn't no longer helping. At the moment, I didn't know that I was actually burnt out, but now I know. So when I got home, I decided to first turn off my phones for a moment. I started looking into other ventures that I had actually wanted to do, the things that I felt like were adding value to me at that moment. I didn't know then that it was actually helping me recover from my burnout, but with time I can now tell burnout is something serious and it's hard to recover from it, especially if you don't recognize that you're actually burnt out. You may want to know, how does this develop? Usually it develops in different circumstances. For example, you may feel cheated, usually at a workplace. You feel you're overly putting in effort and maybe you're not being recognized, or some people are getting recognition or results that you could probably be getting, but you're not. So you end up feeling cheated. Or, and this is very common, when you feel like your values are not in line with what you're doing. For instance, you're at a workplace, but you feel like you want to be self-employed. You'll end up having a mismatch of the values. So when this starts to happen, it's critical that you notice that I'm developing this, because that is the first step to recovery. And it is very important that you take a break. Recently, a friend of mine just called me and she was telling me how she had disappeared. No one of us could contact her, but she was actually trying to recover from this. She told me she had reached a point where she could just be at the workplace and start crying, but she also didn't know what was happening until luckily her boss recognized that she probably needed some time off and she granted her leave. And then she told me that actually during the leave, that's when she recognized that she just needed a break. When you develop this, it's very critical that you take a break. If you can't take a break from work, maybe you can try having some time off during the end of the shift. When you get home, turn off your phone, even social media. Turn off everything and relax. It is very important to have time for physical activity. If you don't play sport, maybe try visiting a gym once in a while. When you exercise, your body recovers. Exercise is good for both mental and physical health. It's also very important to have a self-assessment of the values that you have. Sit down, look into the things you want, and just start thinking through them. Analyze critically if there's anything you want to change,